Chapter 1 is about the brothers' proposal of life. Chapter 2 concerns the reception of the brothers into that life. And Chapter 3 conveys the rhythm of the brothers' liturgical life together in community. As such, the liturgy is an elemental part of the brothers' life that focuses their attention on God. Just as divine inspiration brought the brothers into the community returns itself to God through the divine office. Chapter 3 divides into 3 parts. The first 3 lines provide Jesus' teachings on prayer and fasting. Lines 4 through 10 describe the prayer life of the brothers, and lines 11 through 13 concern fasting. The longer, more detailed middle section might be a later addition to the primitive Forma Vitae. Let us look at each part in turn. The 2 gospel citations provides Jesus' teachings. First, from Mark 9:28, this kind of devil cannot come out except through fasting and prayer. And second, from Matthew 6:16, when you fast, do not become gloomy like the hypocrites. The wider gospel context of the 2 citations shed light on their meaning in the earlier rule. First, Mark 9:28 places prayer and fasting within the context of Jesus' exorcism of a deaf and mute spirit. It may seem odd to our modern expectations, but the earlier rule associates prayer and fasting with exorcism. Yet prayer and fasting are means of turning from sin towards God. At the risk of reading too much into the text, the gospel context and the context of this first section of the earlier rule seems to be related. Mark 9:25 states that the boy was possessed by a deaf and mute spirit that prevented him from hearing and talking. Like the boy, the brothers must rid themselves of such a spirit through prayer and fasting, because a healthy community must hear and talk to each other. Specifically, chapter 2 states that the brothers must obey or listen to each other and the ministers must encourage the brothers and explain community life to them. Likewise, chapters 4 and 5 also has the brothers obeying or listening to their ministers, and the ministers are to spiritually admonish and encourage the brothers. In short, a healthy community must have good communication. Hence, any spirit that diminishes such communication should be removed. Prayer and fasting reminds the brothers that their community must be centered in God's Spirit, lest less wholesome spirits take root and disrupt the community. Second, Matthew 6:16 on fasting follows Jesus' instruction on how to pray the Our Father, which is prominent in the prayer life of the brothers. In effect, both gospel citations refer to Jesus' teaching on both prayer and fasting. Likewise, Matthew 6:16 picks up on the notion of hypocrisy, which was mentioned at the end of chapter 2 and again in chapter 7. The 2 gospel citations identify what Jesus taught regarding prayer and fasting. The next 2 parts of chapter 3 explain what the brothers must do in regards to each. The second part of chapter 3 identifies 3 groups of brothers: clerics, literate lay brothers, and illiterate lay brothers. Each is required to recite the divine office according to their office and ability. First, the cleric brothers can use the necessary books to recite their office according to their office as clerics. Their office would include both the hours and the Eucharist, which they are to celebrate according to the custom of the clerics. They are also to recite Psalm 51, Matthew 6, 9 through 13, and Psalm 130 on behalf of the brothers. Second, the literate lay brothers can have a psalter so they can recite the hours. The fact that the text specifically identifies a psalter for literate lay brothers strongly suggests that it assumes that the clerical would need and can have other books necessary for their office. That is, for celebrating the Eucharist, preaching, hearing confession, etc. In effect, the literate lay brothers can recite the divine office like the literate clerical brothers, but do not need additional books because they do not have sacramental responsibilities. Third, illiterate lay brothers cannot have any books because they cannot use them. Since books were expensive, owning them without use would be a sign of wealth. Instead of reading, the illiterate brothers are to recite the Creed, the Our Father, and the Glory Be for the hours from memory. Although the text abbreviates the directives, the Creed and the Glory Be doxology were presumably recited at each hour. In effect, in place of the Liturgy of Hours, the brothers who could not read would likely have said the Creed 8 times, the Our Father 76 times, and the Glory Be 8 times daily. In addition, like the clerics, they are to say the prayer Eternal Rest and 7 more Our Fathers for the deceased brothers, and 3 more Our Fathers for the failings of the brothers. Hence, the illiterate brothers were to recite the Our Father a minimum of 86 times per day. In sum, the directives of prayer and prayer books is practical. Clerics can have books so they can perform the liturgy. Literate lay brothers can have a psalter so they can perform the hours. And illiterate lay brothers cannot have books because they cannot read. They perform the hours with memorized prayers. The third part of chapter 3 concerns fasting. Just as all the brothers are required to recite the divine office according to their office and their literacy, all the brothers are also to fast at the same times throughout the liturgical year. Here there is no difference among the brothers. Fasting observance they perform. They all fast from All Saints until the Nativity. That is from November 1st to December 25th. And they all fast from Epiphany to Easter. That is from January 6th to March or April. In effect, the brothers extended their fast beyond Advent and Lent. So for 5 or 6 months a year, the brothers would fast in anticipation of Jesus' birth and then his resurrection. For the other half of the year, following the gospel precept of Luke 10:8, the brothers would still fast on Fridays. Hence, gospel teaching encapsulates the brothers' practice of prayer and fasting.